It is the night of January 28th, 2025. An American Eagle jet is descending toward Washington when a military helicopter slides into its path. An alarm sounds in the cockpit. The pilots push the throttles forward, climb away, and come around again. Everyone lands safely. Nobody makes the evening news. 24 hours later, on the same river, on the same approach, it happens again. This time, there is no alarm. This time, 67 people die. And here is the part that should stay with you. The data that predicted this night had been piling up in government computers for 14 years. Nobody had ever acted on it. Every story in this series has one thing in common. Someone saw the disaster coming. Someone tried to warn them. And somewhere, a decision was made to look away. This is Flight 5342. Reagan National Airport sits right on the Potomac, squeezed between the monuments of the Capitol. Its main runway is the busiest in America, and threaded beneath its approach paths for decades ran a set of helicopter corridors. Military, police, medevac, drawn on a chart and almost never questioned. The one that matters here is called Route 4. It follows the east bank of the river, and it tells helicopter pilots, stay at or below 200 feet. What the chart does not say is what sits directly above. When a jet descends toward runway 33, the gap between the landing airplane and a helicopter on that route, flying it perfectly, is about 75 feet. 75 feet, in the dark, over water. The Aviation Authority is required to review these routes year after year. The reviews never came, but the warnings did. Since 2011, at least once a month, a collision alarm has sounded in an airliner cockpit near this airport because a helicopter came too close. In just 3 years, more than 15,000 times, a helicopter and an airliner passed within a mile of each other. 85 times, they came close enough to count the distance in feet. Look at the drawing. Every one of those moments became a record. Every record landed in a federal database. The warning was not a memo this time, it was a drumbeat, and it had been beating for 14 years. On the night of January 29th, a Black Hawk, with a crew of 3, flew Route 4 on a training exercise. Their altitude crept upward, nearly 300 feet, where 200 was the ceiling. Across the river, Flight 5342 was cleared for runway 33. 64 people coming home from Wichita, among them young figure skaters returning from a training camp. The helicopter crew radioed that they had the airplane in sight and asked to keep their own separation. The tower, one controller, working 2 positions that night, approved. But the lights the crew had locked onto belonged to a different aircraft. At 8:48, the 2 paths crossed. 67 people. There were no survivors. Now the honest part. The helicopter crew were not reckless. They were experienced soldiers on a routine check flight, doing what that route had invited 1,000 crews to do. The controller was carrying 2 jobs at once because that was normal, and nobody in the air that night drew the lines on that chart. That is what the federal investigators concluded 1 year later in a report that runs to 50 recommendations. The route itself was the failure, approved decades ago and never once re-examined. The chairwoman of the safety board said the conditions for this tragedy were in place long before that night. And then she said the sentence this channel exists for. We should be angry, because for years, no one listened. The last warning came the night before. A cockpit alarm, a go-around, one more report filed like all the others. The first warning came 14 years earlier. In between lay 15,000 chances to look. Warned. 2011. It happened. January 29th, 2025. 14 years. This drawing stays unfinished. Somewhere, right now, someone is being ignored. The memo before the fire, the the crack before the collapse. If you want to hear those warnings, subscribe and tell me in the comments, which ignored warning should I open next?